strangers, to another episode of Traversing the Strange World. And I'm your co-host, Isaiah Danbury. Alright, welcome back to another Thursday Journal, Notes from the Strange World. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the idea of the Renaissance man. You know what? This is an idea that somebody brought up to me years ago when I was a much younger man, a new business owner with fresh boots on the ground, just getting my business going. I was working for this man who was he was a judge from Chicago. And I was doing some work at his lake house, and he was giving me advice. And he said, you know, Isaiah, I think all men should be Renaissance men. At the time, I wasn't overly familiar with what that meant, but he ignited that curiosity in me, and I investigated what is the Renaissance man. And I found out it's a person who actively develops themselves across multiple areas of life, intellectually, creatively, physically, and morally, rather than remaining a one-dimensional person. A Renaissance man develops curiosity, discipline, skill, and growth, and sees life as an opportunity to continually learn, build, and refine both character and capability. A Renaissance man is someone committed to becoming well-rounded, always learning, always building, always growing, always becoming. And the following are some of the ponderings and reflections that I've gathered on the Renaissance man and what a man ought to be and what a man ought not to be. So here we go. He lives in integration. He's not at war with himself. He becomes a kind of bridge between opposites, between muscle and meaning, between violence and virtue, between the storm and the shelter. The strange thing is, this isn't a modern idea. Miyamoto Musashi, who is remembered as a swordsman, a samurai, but also a philosopher and an artist, he wrote something that has been sitting with me. It is said the warrior, his way is twofold. The way of the pen and the sword, and he should have a taste for both ways, pen and sword, not just sword alone. Because what is a sword without wisdom? Just destruction, looking for justification. And not a pen alone either, because what is a pen without courage? It's just ideas without blood in them. It's the truth that folds the moment it's challenged. But together, the man comes whole. I've been thinking about hard strengths and soft strengths. Hard strengths are the ones you can see. Discipline, endurance, physical power, will, aggression, restrained, and sharpened into usefulness. But the soft strengths, those might be more rare. Composure, emotional mastery, gentleness with boundaries, the ability to listen without turning everything into a debate, the ability to create beauty in a world that is constantly trying to make you numb. And maybe this is the highest form of manhood, not becoming harmless, but becoming restrained. The Renaissance man isn't safe because he's weak. He's safe because he's integrated. He knows what he could do, and he chooses what he should do. The ideal masculine turns strength into structure. It shows up in society like this. As a father who doesn't abandon. As workers who don't cut corners, precision. As men who take accountability even when no one is watching. As leaders who don't need to humiliate others to feel tall. Strength becomes bridges, homes, stability, protection, order, courage in crisis, and calm in chaos. It becomes men who quietly absorb weight so that the people they love don't have to. And that's what I want. Not just strength, but form. Not just intensity, but direction. Not just ambition, but meaning. So today, or whenever you're hearing this, maybe ask yourself, where are you strong but narrow? And what would it look like to become the whole thing, the twofold way, the pen and the sword? A man who can build, a man who can bless.
And then everything has an opposite. There's the counterpart to the Renaissance man, the archetypal man-child.
This is the shadow counterpart to the Renaissance man. This is what happens when potential is never shaped into purpose. Psychologically, this figure has been described in many ways. Peter Pan syndrome, the eternal boy, the devouring son, the uninitiated male. Carl Jung would say, this is the man who never integrates the responsible, grounded adult masculine. He stays trapped in the adolescent psyche. He wants freedom without discipline, pleasure without consequence, status without sacrifice, power without self-control. He resists the very things that forge a man: responsibility, commitment, self-restraint, long-term thinking. Not because he's evil, but because part of him is still scared. Here's where we get honest. The man-child isn't just lazy or selfish. Often, he's a boy who never got what he needed. No healthy male role model, no rite of passage, no one who showed him how to regulate emotion. No one who taught him how to suffer with dignity. So instead of growing through pain, he learns to avoid it at all costs. And that creates the modern trap. Endless distraction, escapism, digital validation, talking big, and doing little. He becomes emotionally reactive, but calls it being real. He avoids responsibility, but calls it protecting his freedom. But deep down, he doesn't feel free. He feels lost. We hear the phrase toxic masculinity a lot, but many times what we're actually seeing isn't too much masculinity, it's arrested masculinity. A boy playing dress up in the costume of a man. It looks like anger without strength, dominance without competence, sexual conquest without intimacy, confidence that collapses under pressure. Real masculinity is stable, grounded, protective, and purposeful. The man-child, his version is loud, fragile, and easily threatened because he never built the inner foundation. Here's the unforgettable part. Modern culture makes it incredibly easy to never grow up. You can consume endless entertainment, avoid psychological challenge, avoid long-term commitments, avoid face-to-face contact, avoid real-world consequences. You can live in a permanent state of stimulation and distraction and never develop patience, emotional regulation, delayed gratification, or responsibility for others. We've built a world where initiation is optional, but the psyche still demands growth. So what happens? Anxiety, depression, anger, and aimlessness. Because the soul knows you were meant to become more than this. But here's the tragedy. The man-child doesn't just hurt others. He slowly loses respect for himself. He feels behind in life, intimidated by strong men, resentful of successful people, afraid of commitment, addicted to comfort. And instead of facing the fear, he builds a personality around avoiding growth. Sarcasm becomes a shield. Cynicism becomes an identity. Blame becomes a lifestyle. But none of it fills the hole where purpose should be. Growth doesn't start with feeling ready. It starts with choosing responsibility before comfort. This is the path out of Manchild psychology. Take responsibility for your life. No more blaming parents, society, or your past. Do hard things on purpose, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Learn emotional regulation. Strength is calm under pressure. Commit to something bigger than yourself and keep promises, especially when it's inconvenient. This is initiation. Not in some tribal ceremony, but a daily decision to become someone your younger self would feel safe depending on. The opposite of the man-child isn't a cold, hyper-serious robot. It's the integrated man. He still laughs, he still plays, and he still dreams, but he also carries weight. He keeps his word, he faces discomfort, protects others, and builds something lasting. The boy in him isn't erased. As Carl Jung always comments, we all have a shadow. We have our shadow side, and that is the internal parasite that we all carry, our internal man-child. But we are to take that inner child and we guide him, we discipline, and we give him direction, because that's maturity. We all start as boys, but life quietly asks each of us a question. Will you stay comfortable or will you grow? The archetypal man-child isn't someone to hate. He's a warning. He's a reminder of what happens when potential is never forged into purpose. If this episode hits you, maybe it's because part of you recognizes the shadow. And it recognizes the boy you used to be and the man that you're still becoming. And that journey, that conscious decision to grow up, not just grow older, that is the path of real strength. In a world that constantly pushes us toward distraction, comfort, and easy identity, the Renaissance man chooses growth. He doesn't just continue culture, he creates culture. He doesn't just react to the world, he studies it. He doesn't just drift through life, he builds one. He understands something simple but powerful. Your life is not just something that happens to you. It's something you shape. Skill by skill, habit by habit, choice by choice. And that doesn't mean being perfect. It means being engaged. It means being willing to stand in the tension between who you are and who you could become. To be a man who is always under construction, but never under excuse. What is one skill, one discipline, one area of knowledge I could begin cultivating right now? Because that's how it starts. Not with a grand transformation, but with a decision to stop shrinking and to start expanding. Let us both pray and ponder what is a corner of our world that we could connect to and make a contribution to our community in an effective way. In a corner of our community that isn't overtaken with snakes. And if it is overtaken with snakes, may we be given the strength and wisdom to crush those snakes. All right, my fellow strangers, I hope you enjoyed this installment to my journal. These were my ponderings and my thoughts on the Renaissance man. Go ahead and like and subscribe. Comment what you thought about this. What is one area, one skill you would like to work on, to sharpen? What's a hard strength and a soft strength you'd like to balance out with that? What's your archetypal sword? What's your archetypal poetry? All right, until next time, my fellow strangers, let's keep traversing this strange world. Let's always be introspective. Let's always be curious. We're kind of just thrown into this life thing. And so let's remember to be neighborly to folks, because at the end of the day,
We're all just strangers in a strange land. Until next time, peace.